Welcome to a very special Never Mind the Ballots from the deck of HMS Iron Duke with the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, we're in Estonia. You're here to talk about a lot about defence. We're going to do that in a moment. But before, I want to talk about your reset with Europe.
Yes.
From what we've seen out of Brussels in recent days, it's going to be an eye-watering price they're going to extract for you to reopen negotiations and reset trade terms. Are you about to betray Brexit?
No, we've been really clear from the get-go that this isn't about re-entry to the EU. It's not about going back to the old rules of the single market, the customs union, freedom of movement, etc. So I've been very clear about that. But within that, yes, we do want to reset. I want to make sure that we get a better deal for the British people, for your readers, so that they feel better off, they've got a better public services. And I think we can do that with a reset. We'll have a summit in the coming months of 2025. So it's not a reversal. I've been really clear about that. Whichever way people voted in 2016, we're not going back in.
The Commission document that was leaked over the weekend, that was their negotiating terms, says that even to begin talks, even to get to that summit, you've got to put free movement for the under-30s, students being able to travel across Europe, come to the UK, on the table, or they're not even going to talk.
I've been clear from the get-go that freedom of movement is
for the under-30s,
a red line for us, and no plans in relation to free movement on any level. But look, we're entering into discussions. There will be a summit in the early part of 2025. We do intend to get a better deal for your readers so they feel better off, but we're not going to reverse. I'm not interested. We've been through a referendum in 2016. We know the outcome of that. We respect the outcome of that. Not going back into the EU. But if you're asking me, can we not get a better deal than the one we've got, I don't accept that.
What are you willing to put on the table for that? For example, if you don't, about veterinary checks and agriculture checks, critics, not even particularly partial critics, people are going to say that's going to come at a price. People that watch the EU closely say they're going to want something for that, and that's going to be ECJ oversight. It's going to be dynamic alignment. Can you countenance those things? And what was the point of leaving if you can?
Well, look, this is going to be a process. We're only at the beginning of that process, and I do want a better deal for our country and for your readers. But we do have clear red lines. We had them in our manifesto.
Yeah.
I've been really clear in our discussions about that. We're not going to do a running commentary along the way, but I did think it was important at the outset to set out our red lines about not going back in, and in relation to the single market, customs union, freedom of movement, which we know that was rejected in the referendum, and we're not reversing that.
On dynamic alignment, which would require us to shadow and mirror EU rules, people are saying that's the mistake that Theresa made. The deal wasn't palatable to the British public or to Parliament. And also, doesn't it not jeopardise the trade deals that we've done around the world, with Australia, with Japan? Are you not concerned that tying yourself closer to the EU is going to basically defeat the point of leaving?
Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves in terms of what if any better deal might have within it. But look, I'm aware and alive to the fact that we got trade deals around the world, and of course we want to make the most of those, and absolutely make sure that we not just keep the existing trade deals we've got, but of course get additional trade deals on top of that as well. So we've got to get the balance right here, but we do need to ensure that we're able to grow our economy, that people feel better off, and they will. I mean, anybody trading with Europe will probably say, look, we need just to be able to trade more easily. There are wider issues of security and defence where I think it's common knowledge that we can have a better.
Stuff on the table to get that security deal.
We've got to work with our partners in Europe on things like stopping the vile trade of people smuggling. Those boats coming across our channel are coming from France. We've got to work with our partners to stamp that out, and that is a good thing for our country.
On the other side of the pond, though, Donald Trump arriving in about 34 days' time, I think it is now. He's not going to be. You say you want to get more trade deals around the world. What about the big one? Is it a trade deal with the United States of interest to Prime Minister Keir Starmer in his first term?
Yes.
Yes?
Of course
so
it is.
We're going to reopen trade talks with the United States?
Yes, we want to have talks with the US about that. Of course we do.
Is that secondary to your EU reset?
I don't think it's an either or.
It kind of is, though, isn't it?
No, I mean, this is put to me a number of times, but
mainly by me. Yeah.
Churchill didn't say it's either US or Europe. He said
if you're dynamically aligning
same with Attlee, and yeah, we've got to get the balance
But if
right.
if you're going closer to the EU, what's the point? What's the interest of the United States to do a trade deal?
Well, look, we're early stage of any negotiations, but of course I want to ensure that we've got good trading arrangements with the US and a deal with the US.
So trade talks under Keir Starmer with Donald Trump.
Yes, we will want to have those talks.
Heard it here first. Excellent. Yeah. Look, let's look back home. You've been PM for 5 months. Poll out this week has you the most unpopular Prime Minister ever. Let's ignore Liz Truss, because she didn't get to 5 months, but at this 5-month landmark, you are apparently the most unpopular Prime Minister in modern times. What happened? What went wrong?
We had a very big poll on the 4th of July.
I know, but then ever since then it's been like that.
And we got a big majority, and that majority was for change, which stabilise our economy, take a mature approach to our economy, which was very badly damaged. We've discovered a £22 billion black hole. Our prisons were full. Net migration is through the roof. We've got to fix that, pick up and deal with the mess. But what I've done is I've set out in my plan for change how I want people to be better off, your readers to be better off.
Our readers are annoyed. Our letters bag is full of people that are very annoyed. They're annoyed about national insurance. They're annoyed about the farming. These are all things you said you weren't going to do before the election. Winter fuel payments. That wasn't mentioned on the in the manifesto, was it? So can you understand why people are disappointed?
I want Sun readers to be better off.
Yeah.
I want Sun readers to be able to go to the hospital and get the appointment they need, not sit on a waiting list for far too long. We froze the fuel duty, which I know would be really important to your readers.
Totally.
Huge amount of money going into our NHS to get those waiting lists down. That will matter to your readers, that we're actually prioritising the things that for them I think are number one concerns. And yes, it's going to take time.
But did you think it would be this rough this quickly? You've garnered quite a few nicknames so far. You've got your Starmer the Farmer Harmer, your Free Gear Kid. Did you think it's going to be this rough this quick?
I've had a lot worse than that in my time, Harry, over the years.
But
so there'll be a great collection of them.
Do you think it's a bit unfair? Did you think it was going to be this difficult this quickly?
Look, we've had to take tough decisions. You can't have everything. But what I decided was prioritise making people better off and getting those waiting lists down. And we had to do that. We'll be judged by that in
Have you made mistakes in the last 5 months? Have you made any mistakes so far in office?
Well, all the decisions we've made were decisions we knew we had to make, but I wasn't prepared to walk past the difficult decisions. When I was trying to deal with the disorder that we had over the summer, we were exposed to just how overcrowded and full our prisons are under the last government. That is unforgivable. We've had to fix that, start fixing that. The economy, £22 billion black hole. Now, Harry, what was I supposed to do? Say, well, I'm going to ignore it, go on with a fiction just like everybody else. I'm not prepared to do that.
One of those monikers,
so we've had to do those difficult things.
One of those nicknames you've got, and it's something that people throw at you from online or even in some places in Parliament, this idea of two-tier Keir, this idea that under your government, there's one rule for one group of people and another rule for another. That's not. Let
me take that head on, actually, because
you've had it a lot.
This arose in response to the Southport terrible killings. I went up there the day after those terrible killings to talk to the police officers, the ambulance workers and the fire workers who'd been at the scene, most distressing scene as you can imagine. I won't go through the details, but we all know what happened there. Those very police officers, I shook them by the hand and said, thank you for what you've done. They were back at work, unbelievably. They had been subjected and seen the most awful scenes, had to deal with the parents rushing back to the scene. And within hours of me shaking their hands, they were back on the front line because thugs were throwing things at them and they had to get into their right. The very same officers. And what was being said on the front line? Two-tier policing. I'm going to stand, if I have the choice on this, and you're right to challenge me, I'm going to stand with frontline police officers doing their best to keep order on our streets, and I'll stand with them every single time.
Does it get to you, that two-tier Keir thing? It's unfair, completely unfair then?
Well, I'm going to stand with our police officers on the front line. I shook them by the hand and said, thank you for going to the most difficult scene that any of us can imagine. By the time I had arrived back in London, they were putting their riot gear on to go out on the front line, to have things hurled at them, to see their fellow officers injured and to have people shouting at them two-tier policing, exposing them to threat. If you're asking me, do I stand with them or do I not? I stand with them every single time. Prime
Minister, you're here to say thank you and happy Christmas to our troops. 100 kilometres away, the front line, well, the Russian border. You've been here in Estonia meeting allies, being briefed. How confident are you that the Ukraine situation is going to be resolved in a good way for President Zelensky, in a good way for Ukraine?
We're on Iron Duke, HMS Iron Duke here, which is in Estonia. It's had a really busy year, and I've been able to say thank you to the crew here, who are doing vital work for us and for NATO. Just up the road, we've got troops who are here on deployment at the front line, and for them, it's important to say thank you, because what they're doing is for real, and the first duty of government is to keep our people safe and secure, and they're the front line doing it. Some of them will be going home for Christmas, but many of them...
This boat might make it home.
Not everyone. We got on here some of the troops who are doing the groundwork up the coast, about an hour up the border, I should say. They won't be going home. They won't be with their families, and so it's very important for me to come and say thank you to them, not just on my own behalf, on behalf of the government, but on behalf of so many of your readers.
Absolutely.
Who actually, many of your readers would love to have the opportunity, and I'll do it on their behalf, to say thank you to our troops for the contribution they're making to keeping us all safe. And many of them won't be with their families this Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. Cheers.
Thanks, Harry.